Hey, welcome to a special edition of KocoSports. Hoping to do more shows, but just want to hit big topics. And this is a little bit of a sad news. WWE, I read on WWE.com. I don't know if they're the ones that broke it, but WWE Hall of Famer Bobby Heenan has passed away at the age of 73. And I just want to put in some thoughts and memories. And just, I got to meet him. I got to work with him. I got to interview him down in Florida. And just all around great guy. But, just, I guess overall, probably the most witty person in pro wrestling. Just really funny, off the cuff, witty person. I just wrote some notes down that I just want to go over some great memories and maybe talk about when I met him and how great of a person he is. Because a lot of times you meet people and you see them on television, you see the celebrities on television, and then when you meet them, they like really disappoint you. And then there's a Bobby the Brain Heenan who's just didn't. You know what I mean? And yeah, he was just an all around great guy. And probably in pro wrestling, even though there's a lot of comedy, it's hard to do comedy, especially for such a long period of time. It's just hard to do comedy, period, for a long period of time. But to do comedy in pro wrestling, because you can have something great, a catchphrase, he's 7 foot tall, you can't teach that. But after that, you have to keep coming up with stuff. And Bobby the Brain Heenan was so witty and could say anything that he lasted for years and was still hilarious when you met him, years and years later at FanFest and all that stuff. Before my time, Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan, probably the funniest commentary team ever. People my age growing up, they absolutely love them, and it just brings, maybe it's nostalgia, maybe it's because they were genuinely funny people and didn't have to stick with catchphrases. But those two guys were absolutely amazing together. And Bobby Brain Heenan and people my age, that's what he remembered. But people that are older than me, and when I was a kid, I was shocked to find out that he was a wrestler. And 1965, he was Pretty Boy Bobby Heenan. This is all before my time, and he got hurt, and then he started eventually becoming a manager. And he still wrestled and took great bumps, but he was probably the best manager of all time. Is just absolutely fantastic. And he started the Heenan family, which is probably one of the best stables ever. In 1975, there's a shoot interview. I'll try to put the link down in doobly doo later, or I'll try to link it up. If not, just Google search it. I think it was RF Video or Ring of Honor shoots. It's him and Jim Cornette. I think it's Ring of Honor, but him and Jim Cornette talk about like in the 1970s in I believe Chicago. Yeah, some crazy fan during the kayfabe days started shooting up the place trying to kill Bobby the Brain Heenan. He also wrestled from AWA, and a lot of these people that don't know, a lot of stuff that was really, really, really successful in WWE has always been stolen. ECW, WCW, even though WCW stole a lot from them, but back in the day, a lot of their talent came from the AWA. He was a wrestler in AWA, he was a manager in AWA, had a small stint in Georgia Championship Wrestling, and he almost appeared in almost every federation. The biggest thing that he ever been a part of, and I think one of the biggest things in pro wrestling, just for a sports entertainment spectacular thing, is WrestleMania III. He managed Andre the Giant against Hulk Hogan. I was watching Wrestling Rantan's video earlier, and he mentioned that Hulk Hogan's the only one alive and one of the biggest I don't want to say overhyped, but one of the biggest promoted, I guess just one of the biggest events. I don't want to say best event, best match, because but yeah, and which call it. And I remember interviewing Bobby the Brain Heenan, and he always talked about like, I was a part of that match. I wish I got paid more. It's like one of the biggest matches in history, and everyone made money. He always felt that he should have got paid more. He guided Mr. Perfect to a great career. He also did one of the greatest things of all time, and I still think it holds up because a lot of times nostalgia takes over, and you're like, oh, I remember this. It feels so great. But I think even to today's standards, when he managed Ric Flair, the real world champion, and the Royal Rumble, it doesn't, it's not like, oh, it was good for that time. I think that will be good forever, and it was absolutely amazing. And Bobby the Brain Heenan managed so many people: King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant, and Rick Rude, and which call I just sometimes they put him even with the best talkers. Ric Flair is a great talker. Rick Rude's a great talker, and they still put them together. And yeah, so And then Vince McMahon asked him to take a 50% pay cut, which is a real dick move. Absolutely huge dick move. You know, and he had to leave. And how he got off television was Gorilla Monsoon physically ejected Bobby Heenan from WWF, and then he went to WCW. He did color commentary. He was on the announce team, the WCW announce team, and he still was absolutely hilarious. He did the big call of the NWO. Brian Pillman, when he was a loose cannon, fucked with Bobby Heenan, and Bobby Heenan dropped the F word, ready to throw down. So yeah, and there's actually a Bobby Heenan Day. I didn't know that. I think we should really celebrate that. April 3rd. That should be a real holiday. He is also in WrestleMania for Houston for the gimmick battle royal, and that was great. Where I got to meet him, maybe for the first time, I'm not sure, is the XWF event. I got to go because of a Japanese pro wrestling magazine. I was the photographer, and I got to meet so many people. And Bobby the Brain Heenan was so cool. We did interviews on the radio. Got to meet him at IPW/NWA Florida events. They were big Florida indies back in the day, and they were pretty much the same company. It just depended on what promoter was paying the bill. If Ron Nemi was paying the bill, it was like, all right, it's IPW. If Joe Price was paying the bill, okay, it's NWA Florida. But Bobby Heenan showed up there a lot, and he was fighting cancer. One of my favorite quotes is, he goes, "If the late great Gorilla Monsoon couldn't shut me up, cancer isn't going to either." And he was always fucking funny and witty and all that. And I remember when I interviewed him on the radio, I didn't want to be disrespectful, but like he just fucked with me. Like, he was really good at fucking with me, because I was like, oh yeah, we're on. At the time we were on, like, don't quote me on this, I think over 32 stations maybe, because we just hustled back then. We just hit every radio station. Back before YouTube and before online radio and podcast, you had to hit radio stations. You had to call them up, send them in it. It was difficult. So count your blessings, there, YouTube audience or YouTubers. You had to really hustle back in the day. But he was like, how does that work? And I'm like, well, a lot of it's through phone lines and satellites. And he's like, how does a satellite work? And I was like, is this motherfucker for real? So I'm explaining how satellites work. And then, like, halfway through, he just keeps asking why. And I'm just like, all right, I got Bobby Brain Heenan on. We're on a commercial break. Sure, I'll ask. And I'm like, well, I'm not a scientist, but I think it shoots something in the air and it shoots it back down in another. I have no idea. And he goes, I'm just fucking with you, bro. And then he came on the show. And he was so good at being interviewed. He was just such a fucking entertainer. There's a lot of pro wrestlers are not really good entertainers. Even a lot of personalities, they don't know how to do a media interview. They don't know, because, like, the radio stations I was on never really liked pro wrestling. They liked their show, and they're just like, oh, can we have less guests, because the guests kind of fucking suck, because they take themselves way too seriously. And I just remember I had a producer that would always be like, get your guest off. No matter how big the name was. I was like, we have, I don't want to throw people under the bus, but we have big name A. And they're like, yeah, big name A is great, but in radio world, he's boring as fuck. And I remember Bobby the Brain Heenan stayed on for a couple segments, and someone that didn't even know anything about wrestling, my producer who knew nothing about wrestling, is like, dude, keep this guy on. He's actually fucking hilarious, unlike your other guests. He's actually entertaining. And I just remember him talking about, money issues, wishing he got paid more. And also, he really hated Diamond Dallas Page. He went on for like a 10 to 20 minute rant about how bad Diamond Dallas Page was. And, like, I think, like, I added fuel to the fire, because he's like, what do you think about Diamond Dallas Page? I was like, I don't know, I enjoyed him. I don't think he was that bad. And I guess it was like me asking me, saying, I don't think Cena's that bad. You just hear me rant. Like, Bobby the Brain Heenan lost his shit. And, like, for 15 minutes, he was, like, throwing stuff in his toilet, flushing it down, and just being absolutely hilarious. But, yeah, I hope Diamond Dallas Page and Bobby the Brain Heenan worked stuff out. I don't know. Maybe it was just all in character, but it was absolutely hilarious. He went into the WWE Hall of Fame. He broke down during his speech about Gorilla Monsoon. He hadn't had a short time in TNA, and even in Ring of Honor. He was CM Punk represented him at Ring of Honor. So, I mean, from AWA, TNA, WWE, WCW, Georgia Championship Wrestling, it's just absolutely amazing career he's had, and always in pro wrestling. And I got to meet him at Wrestle Reunion down in Tampa, and just, yeah, sometimes, like, they always say, don't meet your heroes because they're going to disappoint you. And trust me, there are a lot of athletes slash celebrities I met that I wish I never did. I was like, man, I wish I didn't meet that guy. But Bobby the Brain Heenan was not one of those guys. And it's just absolutely entertaining guy. And it just sucks because, I'm going to echo Wrestling Rant. And please check out Wrestling Ranton's channel too. But I'm going to echo something. It feels like slowly but surely our childhood and our memories of pro wrestling are passing away because we're getting older. And if you're a younger fan, please check out his stuff with Ric Flair. Please check out his promos. The first Monday Night Raw. Like, I thought the first Monday Night Raw, this is just my opinion, maybe I'll have to go back and watch it, but from my punch-drunk memory, I think the first Monday Night Raw was boring as fuck except for Bobby the Brain Heenan. Bobby the Brain Heenan was locked out trying to get back in, and I was like, all right, it wasn't that good of a show, but at least they had Bobby the Brain Heenan. So, yeah, just a great guy. And he really, like, when I met him at all these events, I just remember he was such a great husband, and he always talked about how great his wife was. So I always thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, just all around great guy, and another Hall of Famer passed away. If you want, put down in the comments your favorite Bobby the Brain Heenan moment. But overall, just absolutely amazing guy. I was kind of heartbroken. I was hanging out with a friend, and it was like, oh fuck, that sucks. But yeah, so hopefully to do more videos, hopefully to be more cheering up stuff. But sometimes just want to talk Bobby the Brain Heenan. A couple people asked me, and he was just, all I could say is fucking the funniest fucking guy probably in pro wrestling. So witty, so quick, and just an overall great guy. All right, so yeah, hopefully we'll be back more often. And hopefully we'll talk more pro wrestling and combat sports and all that. But just wanted to talk about this for a little bit. All right, I'll see you soon. With that, I am